Hi, Stuart here. Today, the elevator pitch, a 90-second essential soft skill. So, you're on an elevator with, the vice president of marketing, and she turns to you and says, "Hey, what do you think about blah?" Or, "Who the heck are you?" Or whatever. And you have 90 seconds, the length of an average elevator ride, to answer the question. And so the elevator pitch is a tried and true communication technique to get an idea across quickly and concisely and make yourself look good in the process. Why 90 seconds? Because that's the maximum attention span of most busy people if you're lucky. You have to be able to verbally hook them in the first 30. So brevity is the soul of wit, according to William Shakespeare. And here we're using wit specifically to indicate what we want the other person to perceive of us. We want to have them perceive that we're smart, that we're quick on our feet, and that we can deliver ideas with clarity. Clarity is very important. There's no point in being smart or fast if you're unclear, because it doesn't help anybody. So practicing clarity is the thing that you can do to improve your micro public speaking, in this case, the elevator pitch. So we have this thing called the rule of thirds. At least this is how I learned it, which is what, why, and who. And you've got 30 seconds to do each one. So what? You have to restate the question or whatever. It's really important. If it's jargony, what they're asking, there's a chance that you could do 90 seconds on something that has nothing to do with what they're asking. So I find it useful to restate whatever it is in different words if I can, and make some eye contact to make sure that they're like, yeah, that's what I meant. You don't have to belabor it, but it's good to put a context on it. The other thing is it shows that you can take that one or two word thing they asked you about and expand it into a context with clarity. Remember, clarity is the point. And that you have knowledge, etc., 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 right? Okay, so that's the first 30. The second 30 is you've got to make the user care about it. They don't any interest in learning something, and they may regret even asking you unless you can make them care. So the middle 30 seconds are the why they should care as a user. They may already know, but they want to know that you know that they know that you know that they know that you know that they... Never mind, you get the idea. So it's always good to frame that in terms of use cases and anti-use cases, because, again, that explains in a way that shows that you have context to their question. So it's the vice president for marketing and your team is working on their new marketing support website. Then you want to anchor it to the project you're on. If it's a new person who has maybe seen you at the stand-up intro, "Hi, this is Stuart, he's joining the project," and they want to figure out how you fit into their universe, right? That's what the middle 30 seconds are for. And so it's pretty important. By the way, 30 seconds is a guideline, plus and minus, but generally speaking, brevity is the soul of wit. So if you can do all this 3 steps in 60 seconds, then yay. And then 30 seconds, who? And the who, 99% of the time, should be you. Why should you be their go-to guy for something? Like, what makes you worth talking to? Why do you exist on the planet as far as they're concerned? Remember, the speaker only cares about them. You should just assume that. Now, when you're talking to them, you can make them sound like, well, as you know, as a keen stakeholder for this project, you're keenly interested in blah, blah, blah. That's great. But the reality is you inside your head have to assume that they're only in it for them. Because, well, they are. So you have to relate whatever the topic is to you and what value you bring to it. And then you need to anchor the end of that conversation to, here's why I'm an expert and I can help. I know who could help and I can hook you up. Or I think this is a terrible idea and I am happy to talk more about it, and I can have you also talk to blah, 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 because they also know something about this. Notice that in all cases, it's a transitive, and the transitive is why they should care to why you're credible, right? Your credibility is the last thing you want to leave them with. Fail the first two parts, and there's no point in trying to sound credible because that ship sailed. So just remember, why you should be the last thing that they hear, but you shouldn't oversell it, right? You don't want to be, as they say in acting, on the nose, where you say, and I'm the greatest, because no, it'll just be off-putting. So, but you want to make the person who asked the question feel like, wow, asking this person was the smart move, without, delving into self-aggrandizement and narcissism. So, little takeaway from probably the greatest philosopher queen who's ever lived. So here's a crib sheet that you can use that, this is one of those slides that you print out, and then whenever, as you practice the elevator pitch for different topics, and we'll talk more about how you can practice this, this is just kind of your guide to writing the perfect elevator pitch. And it gets you into the habit of thinking about elevator pitch, and you'll notice that this has a bunch of attributes. I have the rule of three broken down into fifths, which is a good structure in people's brains. For whatever reason, humans like odd numbers, 1, 3, and 5. And so 1, 3, and 5, 1, the topic, 3, the parts of the topic, 5 bullets, different ways that you could go with each of the 30 seconds, right? 1, 3, 5. So examples. Here's the one I use to sell me. Not the exact one, because it's different every single time. More about that later. But you can see if we break this down, I'm redefining the topic and combining parts of 3 and 2. They don't have to necessarily be linear. All ingredients have to be there. When you're first starting, they're going to be linear as heck. Don't worry about it. But as you get better and better, you're weaving parts 1, 2, and 3 into a seamless communication. So read this. Try reading some of these aloud, by the way. And if they don't seem right to you, then rewrite them and do them again to make it sound more like you. And then, this is my little mini pitch, right? This is one paragraph that's, why hiring Stuart, the enterprise architect, was a good idea. And I can get away with a little self-deprecating humor because, well, A, that's in my personality from the first second you meet me, and B, because I'm good at delivering it, because I can deliver it with soft confidence. My voice rises and falls over the span of that sentence in all the right places, then tails off at the end, and that I can deliver it, right? I've had the rule for over a decade, so I'm getting good at it most days. That's, that takes practice. Had a lot of it. Well, almost 50 years of it. This is a formula for selling you. Plug in your own stuff, write it in your own speaking style. Here's one for talking about a technology, Microsoft SQL Server. And again, we want to say what it is, what it's for. You can show that you know a little history. That's always good. Back when this first started out, it was blah, 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 but now it's like blah, blah, blah. And, here, blah, 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 blah. And wow, we can do all these great things with it. And this is why it's important to your project. And, I always try to throw in something when I talk about technologies about how many people can actually do it. Because if I'm making the anti-case for something, one of my most persuasive arguments are that this thing is such a rarefied skill that you're going to have a hard time finding people who genuinely know it and can help you. You, the listener. Here's an example of a technical topic. Here's an example for a process, right? And what are we trying to sell about that? We're not trying to sell the process itself. We are going to try to show that we totally get what it's for. And in this case, we're talking about Scrum, and very few orgs actually genuinely do from the ground up Scrum. They do Agile with Scrum, or scaled Agile with Scrum, or trapezoidal Agile with Scrum and, minty freshness. But, they don't do Scrum. A survey of the various project methodologies, assuming that people were neither delusional or lying too bad, shows that Scrum is really not popular. It was very popular for a little while, but the artifact that came out of Scrum, which is the daily status meeting, the daily stand-up, whatever you want to call it. And so I say, that's the real value proposition of Scrum. That's what I'm trying to say. And I say, what are we trying to get out of it? And, how do you keep it from devolving into a mess? Because when most people think of Scrum, they've been to bad Scrum meeting. And if you say, oh yeah, I find Scrum meetings very handy, they look at you sideways and go, huge expensive waste of time. Are you mentally ill, stupid, or do you have stock? So we want to dissuade them. We want to say, done right? A lot of these process things, it isn't what the process is, it's how to do the process right, and that you're the person who knows how. That's what you're trying to sell. Why Bob? Hey, what do you think of Bob? Bob is great. Here's all the things Bob knows how to do. Here's the soft skills that enable Bob to be better than his peers. So we talk about incident handling, we talk about mentoring, standards procedures. The more managery the person is, the more this will resonate. If they're less managery and more technical, then you talk about how helpful Bob is to development teams. And then, you want to leave with the takeaway. I highly recommend Bob. Or, conversely, if you think Bob is a train wreck of a human being that kills and eats the neighbor's pets, you would want to do, sort of the anti-case for Bob. Bob has his, and you should damn with faint praise. Bob has his virtues, but I've seen teams have challenges with Bob in terms of both the quality and delivery. Sometimes his analytical problem solving, like during an incident, aren't all that helpful. Blah, 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 blah. And then, instead of I highly recommend him, he goes, you can consider him, but there might be better candidates available for this project. If you're going to damn with faint praise. Anything. Process, procedure, person. When you're negative, call out strong use cases, like these are the things Bob's not good at, or these are the things SQL's good at, or this is where the parts of Scrum that are useful, or whatever. And then, here's a true anti-example. This one's just for fun. But I actually, honest to God, was being interviewed for a job, and somebody said, why not divide by 0? And I'm a computer scientist, and I do a lot of math. I think of myself often as a mathematician because I do a lot more math than sort of the average enterprise architect. Sadly, a lot of it's financials, but the point is that you should be able to phrase a negative recommendation in a way that makes you look fair, clear, honest, smart, and concrete. What do you do about dividing by 0 or whatever? And so, this is a formula for doing that. And again, I can get away with having, a light amount of humor in here, but notice that I put it into a technical context. I related to why dividing by 0 is even a thing. And then I say, in the general area in which we work, dividing by 0, rarely, if ever, do we have a use for it. And so we try to avoid it. And we also try to catch the error when you suspect it's possible, right? This is all, it demonstrates your proactivity on the topic. That's the other thing. Don't be passive. Don't use the passive voice. Use the active voice. And if you don't know what that is, Google it with your favorite search engine. Practice maketh perfect. I cannot tell you how much time I practiced the elevator pitch. I had a role about 25 years ago where I was going to be in engineering pre-sales, and I came out of an academic background, and, we're used to getting paid by the word, so some of my answers were a little nerdy and, a lot nerdy and incredibly long. And the sales guy I was working with, who's a super good human being, but more importantly, has a rapacious knowledge of human psychology. And he said, learn to do an elevator pitch. And he didn't necessarily know how to tell me what an elevator pitch was, but he was really good at grading the ones that he heard me give and said, you should transpose this and this. And then don't forget, the end is buy stuff from us because we're the bomb, baby. First thing is, in terms of an exercise, is learn to do an elevator pitch for you. And if you're like me, and I can be in any number of roles, my highest calling is enterprise architecture. That's my all-time favorite thing. If somebody said, what do you want to do until you die? I'd go enterprise architecture. And I'm an architect who codes. So I code all the way down to the ground, and, I'm on incidents, and, but I love delivering things to production. If you have a bunch of different skills, do an elevator pitch for each skill and then do kind of a general one, why I rock. So if you're not sure what, in an interview, when they say, well, say a little something about yourself, give the elevator pitch for the role you're interviewing for. Just like you may want to tweak your resume for the role you're interviewing for. And get good at doing you in a bunch of different roles. And then pick the most common things that are in your world and do elevator pitches from them and practice. And you should find some people who love you enough not to set you on fire when you ask them if you can deliver some elevator pitches to them and get their honest feedback. If you have siblings, these are excellent because they have no interest in being nice to you whatsoever. And a chance to drum on your head, at least in my family, is, de rigueur. And so they are really great. Longtime friends who know you and love you anyway are great. Your peers, like you could organize an elevator pitch lunch and learn and have different people practice their, over the course of a couple of weeks. We learn about the elevator pitches, we write elevator pitches, we deliver elevator pitches, we give feedback about elevator pitches, the sort of thing that you might do in Toastmasters. If you haven't heard of Toastmasters and you want to be a better public speaker in general, I strongly recommend it. They're awesome. And then, start with a crib sheet, fill it out, and then riff. Do ad hoc variations. Do not memorize the speech. You are not an actor. Right? You want to come off as being a human. If you give a speech you've memorized, unless you're, Patrick Stuart, you're not going to sound good. Patrick Stuart could read the Yellow Pages and sound great. So could Helen Mirren. But you're not them. Neither am I. So make sure that you get the idea that on the moment you can, get across most of the points you wanted to get across in 90 seconds crisply and leave them with the idea that you are part of the solution. Why ask me? I know stuff. Thank you for your kind attention.